Welcome back to The Crisis of Readers. This is episode 7, Shakespeare Did It Best, where we're going to talk about If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. We're your host. I'm Allie.
And I'm Mac.
Yeah, let's get into this.
Woo!
Welcome back. We're back on our second episode from our long hiatus, I think. This is the second, yes.
Yes.
We recorded this already, and then our audio was... So now we have to re-record this. So if the pacing is a little bit different, it's because we've already talked about this, and now we have to do it again.
Yeah, and Ollie's being really nice. Our audio wasn't shit. My audio specifically was shit. So,
I didn't want to throw you under the bus. I was just letting you. I was like, this is us problem.
I appreciate that. Okay.
But yeah, so we read If We Were Villains. Another this is our first dark academia book that we're doing, which will probably not be the last because we're suckers for it.
Yes, we both do. I have dark academia related news actually that I heard today.
Let me hear.
So I haven't read the Secret History by Donna Tartt.
Yes.
But apparently some journalist went and identified the specific people it was based off of. Like found the specific people apparently that were in the book. And they're like, yeah, it's
based on specific people.
I think it's supposed to, like, it's hypothetically not, but people are like, I think this is too specific. And apparently a journalist like found people who apparently are the characters, which is so messy.
That is so messy. And why did you do that?
I don't know. And why were you so obvious about it that a journalist could find out? You know what I mean? It's different. If I wrote a book, right, and there were some people who were, like, loosely based off of our friends, like, you might know, you know? But, like, I would be doing my job badly if then someone who didn't know me could then figure out who the people were.
I guess that's fair. I'm like, did they do the things in the book? Because the book does surround a murder.
Oh, wow.
So...
I have no idea. I did not...
I would hope that that's not true.
Hopefully there was no murder.
Yeah. Because If We Were Villains is actually, like, loosely based off of The Secret History.
I had no idea that there was a murder in A Secret History, to be honest.
Yes, there is, in fact, murder. It's, like, their whole thing.
I see.
So we're talking about If We Were Villains today. It is written by M.L. Rio, and M.L. Rio is an author who has a master's in Shakespearean studies from King's College in London. She also has a PhD in English literature from the University of Maryland. And her thesis was regarding the representation of madness and mood disorders on early modern stage. So that is pretty cool. And she has a book coming out in September of this year called Hot Wax. So that will be interesting. I might be picking that up. The author is an academic, which is always our favorite.
We love an academic. Yes, very much so. And I think her dissertation was very relevant, or their dissertation was very relevant to the content.
Yes. Okay, so we can start off with our non-spoiler section of this book. I'll start by reading the back, as I always do. So, enter the players. There were 7 of us then, 7 bright young things with wide, precious futures ahead of us. Until that year, we saw no farther than the books in front of our faces. On the day Oliver Marks is released from jail, the man who put him there is waiting at the door. Detective Colburn, I've never said his name out loud, please forgive me. Detective Colburn wants to know the truth after 10 years. Oliver is finally ready to tell it. A decade ago, Oliver is one of 7 young Shakespearean actors at Declar Classical Conservatory, a place of keen ambition and fierce competition. In this secluded world of firelight and leather-bound books, Oliver and his friends play the same roles on stage and off. Hero, villain, tyrant, temptress, ingenue, extra. In their fourth and final year, good-natured rivalries turn ugly, and on opening night, real violence invades the students' world of make-believe. In the morning, the fourth years find themselves facing their very own tragedy and their greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police, each other, and themselves that they are innocent. Yeah, this book was good.
Yes,
I liked it.
I did also like it.
The Shakespearean actors, the way they say Shakespearean actors on the back of the book makes me always go, oh, they must like do a Shakespeare play. No, they go to college fully just to do Shakespeare. which is not a spoiler. That's like the first sentence.
That's the whole premise of the book. It's such a niche thing to go to school for. Like, can you imagine? I feel like a lot of parents already are like, I'm not sending you to, at least my parents did that to my brother, like, we're not sending you to school for you to get a theater degree. But then you go, and this place, it's not even just a theater degree. There's not even a degree, because it's just what is it called? A conservatory, and it's only for Shakespeare. So, but they are,
it's like you get a 4-year certificate at the end.
Yeah, which is crazy. This was my second time reading the book, and it was your first time reading the book.
Yes.
I feel like I often comment on this, but because it was the second time around and I was reading it while doing things in my life, I listened to the audiobook, and this is a book that does not translate super well into an audiobook. There's something, even though I guess like theater is oral, but it does not work. I guess maybe if it was a fully dramatized audiobook, it might have enhanced the experience, but just hearing one man go through all of the parts did not do it for me. It did make me like it, enjoy it less, for sure.
That's fair. I think, like, also the Shakespeare aspect, because they talk a lot in Shakespeare quotes, which is kind of insufferable sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's partially why I enjoyed this book more written, is because I find Shakespeare easier to understand when reading as opposed to just hearing it. Though, yes, it is insufferable, and because if you hear it, you're hearing how insufferable it is to just randomly speak in Shakespearean quotes. But like when you're reading it, you're like, oh, that's like intellectual, that's like fun. And the author does even acknowledge it in their author's note. They comment on how a lot of the quotes, there are like quotes from Shakespeare, but they're not even direct quotes. They're sort of stylized, and the characters use them a lot. There's at least one scene where two of the characters literally just have the play. It's just the two of them, and they're working issues out through lines, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah, that was something. It was very heavy theater kid energy.
Yes.
That's all I can say. As a ex-theater kid, I'm barely an ex-theater kid. I never acted. I was only tech and occasionally a tap dancer.
You know, very similar roles. Tech and tap dancer.
Yes, they actually go hand in hand. The more you know about tech, the closer you are to being a professional tap dancer.
I did not do any, like, theater, so I was definitely not a theater kid. I just did a lot of sports. That was kind of my big thing. I did sports and writing extracurriculars were mainly the two things I did. Though I did have a little choir in the middle, just because I liked singing. I'm not particularly good at it, but I did enjoy it, so I did that. But no.
That's fair. I did track and field and basketball and tennis while I was in high school.
We did not I did track and field, actually. We did overlap a little bit. But yeah.
But, so, like, what you talked about last time, which I think was interesting, we should talk about again, is that it starts with one of your favorite microtropes.
Yes. We're starting the book at the end of the story, and we're kind of working backwards, which I really enjoy. I feel like it's not a spoiler since it's sort of the premise of the book, and you find out, like, first chapter. There's been a murder, and you know that the main character, Oliver, went to prison for it. And they spend the rest of the book describing... And then the premise of the book is that Oliver is describing to this police officer who was a detective on the case but recently retired what actually happened, because this police officer goes up, visits him in jail like a day before he's going to get released, or like the day he is released, and is like, please, I retired, I just want to know what happened, like just for my peace of mind. And he's so real for that, because if I was a detective, that's what I would want. And I had these shenanigans on my plate, I would be like, please just tell me what happened.
I agree. I like that it starts at the end, but I also, that man is so right.
He is.
I would need to know what happened with, like, my whole, I don't know how detectives don't do that more often.
I know. I like, please, it's like, yeah, it was good, especially because the detective seems pretty set even years later that Oliver didn't do it, which we as the readers know that Oliver didn't do it. So it was really interesting, though it is hilarious then when you're reading the story, you know that he is telling this to the detective, so it makes certain parts where they're like talking about having sex and doing other things, you're like, that's hilarious that he chose to tell this old detective about that part. I don't know that was relevant.
Yeah, if you take this at face value, there's like actual moments where he's just explaining like petty college student things that are not relevant to what's happening at all.
Yeah, like they're relevant for him as like context, but they are not relevant to what actually happened. Like describing what actually happened is approximately like a 5-page affair. Like
the book is 10 pages. It's just the beginning and then the explanation, and then the book's over.
That's the whole book.
But this is a very well written book, I have to say. While he's describing what's happening, I feel like I'm also seeing what's happening. Mm-hmm. That detective really got a treat from, he asked a theater kid to tell a story,
and the theater kid ate that up.
After said theater kid didn't have an audience for however long his sentence was, he was primed and ready.
He was like, I'm actually ready to spill, and I'm gonna be poetic about it because I haven't gotten to perform in years. It was, the language is, I think, the strongest part of the book. It is beautifully written. The description of the campus that they are all at is very vivid and very it's described in a way that is very like nostalgic and produces a certain vibe, so it feels very academic.
I like what they did with the weather.
Yes, the weather is, yes,
the weather really plays a big part in how the ambiance of this book, and I loved every second of it, so that's fun.
I adore, it's definitely one of those books where you're supposed to sort of know what happens as it's going, because it's using very heavy foreshadowing, but it's done so well, so you kind of just love it. Like, you have a point at the beginning of the book where one of the characters, they're like talking about character tropes, and one of them goes up to Oliver, who we know ends up in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and who talks about how his time will come and you'll be the tragic hero and stuff like that. And so, especially as you're going, you're like, oh, I see what's happening here. But it's so good because it's foreshadowing. A lot of the foreshadowing is done through the plays, which I think are some of the best parts of the book, especially prose-wise. They're written, like the description of the sets and the blocking is crazy, but like very, very cool. I loved the idea of having Caesar set as a presidential election. I thought that was so interesting and a fun take on Caesar. Obviously it's relevant, so I did quite like that.
I did think this book needed to be like 200 pages longer, and specifically at the beginning to highlight their relationships more, because I felt like a lot of big things started to happen towards the middle, and I didn't really care about the characters enough yet to like, one, care that it was happening, and two, to like understand why they were acting the way that they were.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed the first, I guess it's about a third of the book, because it feels like it should be longer, and it's not actually, where it's pretty much all about their interpersonal relationship and how, like, their dynamic as a group. It's done so well, and you really start seeing what those relationships are like. It's just not long enough for you to fully invest into them being, because they're described very much as a like found family group where they all kind of have horrific home lives in various ways, and they're like, well, it doesn't even matter because we're each other's family, except they go like, except like certain of them you have no idea. Like, it is very confusing as to how they were ever friends with Richard, because they don't seem to like him. Even in that first like 100 pages where they're talking about him, they're like, you know, we're all best friends except Richard's the worst. And you're like, okay, I don't know why you'd like him. There's been no evidence that he is a fun person to be around at all.
I feel like they trauma bonded because of how their program works.
Yes.
Like, and that is part of like a dark academia aesthetic too. And a lot of those books, they're groups of people who are like hella toxic to each other and also like very much flawed and crazy, but then like for some reason they're holding on to this friendship group and like the things they're doing for dear life.
Yeah.
And you're like, there has to be more people you can talk to outside of this group because they clearly make you upset all the time.
Exactly.
You see that in a lot of just like dark academia in general. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm like, why are you in this room then? It's like if we actively chose to sit with like people in our PhD program who we knew just like pissed us off.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't do that because that's crazy work. But it is interesting, and some of my favorite points on the book are their interpersonal relationships. Like, I find the characters themselves are really engaging. Even if you don't like them, they're still interesting. Though Alexander is probably my favorite, and he's kind of the sassy gay man is the best, I think, of the group. But he's very funny. He's like chain smoking all of the time, flirting and being mean to them, which is fun. I love that.
He's also chain smoking joints.
Yes, that's the other. It's not just cigarettes.
Not just cigarettes. Also, I think it's funny that you said Alexander is the sassy gay one, because in my mind, Alexander is Kevin Day. Like, that is exactly that man, but in If We Were Villains.
That's so funny, actually.
And so I was like, yeah, that's like, I'm reading the book and that's like all I'm picturing. I'm like picturing like fan art of Kevin Day, but it's Alexander. I did love him though. He was one of my faves, probably my faves. But and then I liked Oliver, but I was also feeling complicated feelings towards him.
Yeah.
Because I was like, sir, why are you making these decisions?
Yes. There's a lot of why are you making these decisions especially while stuff is going down. Oliver, I also have kind of a soft spot for. Yes, because he does make a lot of stupid choices, but also he talks a lot about being the he's like, I'm good, I'm just not great, I just kind of fill in where I need it. And I'm like, ugh, that one hurts a little bit.
Yeah, the thing is, he is good. He just doesn't think he is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's once he's out of his own head, actually, where things start going well for him. And it is ironically Richard who tells him like his strength, and then he suddenly like gets a good part in the next play that they go for, which was interesting. Richard was like observing one of his auditions and was like, hey, you're actually really great when you stop fidgeting. And
yeah,
Oliver's kind of self-conscious about it, but does it. And that is probably one of the only moments where I'm like, oh, maybe they are friends with Richard.
Well, that's why I think I needed more pages, because I do think that they were all friends with Richard, but I couldn't see why yet.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Like, I think we needed more moments to be like, oh yeah, Richard's chill.
Yeah. I think that the time after the murder happens could have been, like, proportionately should have been a shorter period of the book. because that was just simply not as interesting. A whole lot of nothing happens kind of right after, and then a lot happens at the end, like picks back up again. And the stuff that happens after the murder, it's like important for like emotional development, but it felt so long compared to the time we had at the beginning to actually get to know the characters, which was not that long. So I was like, I sort of feel bad that you're having a mental break, as you know, I feel about anyone, but I am not emotionally connected to you yet. You have not done the groundwork for me to care all that much.
No, that is so true. I like by the middle, like, because of like I wasn't fully bought in, and they were just doing kind of nothing. But it would have been an interesting nothing if I knew more about them beforehand.
Yes, exactly.
It felt like it took too long. I was just slogging through it. It took me, so I started it in April, like April 12th. I read literally half of the book April 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And then took me 2 months to finish the second half of the book.
Yeah. It just kind of it just drags. I also, and I was doing I was just listening to the audiobook, which I find it easier to like power through stuff even if I don't want to listen. But I took a break after we got to the murder scene, the incident in the middle of the book. I also sort of slowed down because I was like, please.
Please stop.
Please.
And they're all like going through it, which is like, it makes sense, but like at the same time, I don't care that you're going through it.
Exactly.
And I think that's the hardest part. I think it's like, especially with dark academia, like I feel like there's like a fine line you have to build of like a plot, but also like letting it be a character driven story, because I feel like dark academia is inherently supposed to be a criticism on like elitism in education, as well as like how far are you willing to like push yourself for like a vision of what you think you should be.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I feel like this book, it was great, and I think the concept was great, and she is a great writer. So I feel like if she just made the book a bit longer, which I know is hard because marketability, making a book longer is always going to inherently shrink your market, because most people don't want to read. I shouldn't say most. People won't want to read longer books because they're too long and they're intimidating. But I do think that like if I had bought into those characters and I had bought into like their desperate need to like make it out of here, giving them more stakes or something like that too. I feel like they kind of mentioned that this is like a 4-year in-depth Shakespearean program, but I feel like if they would have explored more like, what does this mean? They're like at the end of it. If they don't finish it, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like a PhD, right? Like you get towards the end of your PhD and you're like, if I don't finish this, what did I just do for the last 4 to 5 years?
Yeah. And you get like a little bit of that with there's a scene where Oliver isn't sure he's going to be able to finish the degree. And so you get a little bit there, but you don't really understand how much it means to them, because this sort of happens and then this is what they're thinking about basically the entire time. You don't get a lot of appreciation for the actual like academic section, or like what daily life was going to be like for these people before this happened. And it's this book, and a lot of dark academia in general, it's a balancing act between the environment being not exactly a character, but being a big driving focus, but also the characters. Like, it's a character-driven novel. It's in an interesting setting, and the setting interacts with the characters and causes them to act certain ways, but it's definitely a character-driven novel. Like, the whole thing is about their relationships with each other and how they reacted to this. And I do just think, like, we needed longer to sit with the characters to really understand where they were coming from before we kind of jumped in, because then you're like, I feel sort of bad, but I don't know you as you when you're not actively in mourning, and you're a little crazy right now, enough to really care.
Yeah. That's definitely fair. it was just, I feel like it's a little hard sometimes with this book too, because it's like, it was such a good book. Mm-hmm. Like, the writing is so good. Yeah. And then because of the like lack of connection I had for the characters, I feel like I judged the book harder than it probably needs to be, because I'm like, I wasn't bought in. But like, me and my sister talked about this too, because I was talking about how I was going to rate this book after she also had just recently read it, and then I read it, and so we were talking about it, and at first I was like, yeah, I'm not really loving this, so I think this is probably like a 3-star read for me. But then I kept reading it, and the writing was
it's so good,
and like the prose and like everything were so nice that I was like, actually, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. My sister was like, but you're not enjoying it as much, and I was like, yeah, but I think that part of my ratings of books includes how good the writing is. Yeah. Until you get to the 5th star, in which the quality of writing
matters less,
does not weigh as heavily as my enjoyment of the book.
I agree. We've talked about this. A 5-star read is sort of like it's like a friend, you know? Like, I'm not judging you on your quality here. I'm judging you on how you make me feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, was this greatly written? No, but it's getting 5 stars from me. On the flip side, if I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 stars, that's even better. But you could write absolute trash, but if it settles in my heart,
that's a 5-star read.
That's a 5-star read right there. A 4-star could be a book that I was like, this isn't really for me, but it's well written, so I'll give it 4.
Yeah. I agree. Let's do ratings now then, and then we can pop into the spoilery section.
All right, yes, let's do it. I gave this book 4 stars upon completion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like a solid 4-star book for me. Like, I had my qualms with it, but it was really well written, and by the end I was back into it, so that was cool.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I really don't remember if I gave it like 3.5 or 4 stars last time, but it's about that. I would say it is 100% well worth reading at least once. If you're a theater kid or you really like Shakespeare, you probably love it, to be honest. I enjoy Shakespeare, but not quite this much. And I am not as well versed in Shakespeare as some people, since I have not really read Shakespeare since high school. But it is so well written that you can't help but enjoy reading it, because it's like the prose is so beautiful. It's just like overall, and I would say the first time I read it, it was solidly like a 4.5 stars, and then I think the second time I read it, it kind of decreased, because it was just part of the drive. It's a character-driven novel, but also part of the drive is trying to know what happened. And so once you already know what happened, it kind of doesn't fully take away, but it does take away a little bit, some of that driving suspense that kind of brings you through the story.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to switch into our spoiler section right now.
Hey, stop listening. This is a big time spoiler alert, and I will not be held responsible if you hear something you don't want to hear.
Because I feel like I knew immediately what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before we find out that we're in the spoiler section, so that's probably a warning already, but
here's your second warning.
We found out that here's your second warning. Before we found out that it was James, I knew it was James.
Yeah. It's pretty heavily like foreshadowed that it's James, and it makes sense that it's James. But I think part of the suspense is like, how is it James? Like, what happened? Like, what were the circumstances that led to it?
I really didn't have that. Like, I was like, James went down to that man to confront him about something, and he hit him in the head and let him fall into that river or lake. And then he came back and he took a shower, and that's when Oliver found him again. And Oliver had a thirst trap moment because James was naked. Meanwhile, James had just killed a man.
Yeah.
That's exactly that scene where they're in the bathroom happens, and my brain literally went, wow, Oliver's thirsting after this man after he just killed the man.
I definitely, yeah. It's the first time, did not put all of the pieces. I was not exactly sure how it happened. I was pretty confident James had done it. But how exactly, I was not sure. And then there's also that kind of weird part where James sort of tries to save him, but it does make a lot of sense for who James is as a character, because he's kind of portrayed as front running as the hero. He like plays the hero in a lot of these in a lot of their plays, and the plays pretty directly. This is the main reason you know who did everything, because all of the plays are just what's happening in their life. So like when Richard dies, they're playing Caesar, and Richard is Caesar and James is Brutus. So it's very like, you know who did it. It's being spelled out for you right there. Though it also makes sense because it's, you know, it's Brutus, but it's also the whole plot of Caesar is that it's a bunch of people and they all play a bunch of people, and it is all of them. They all make that decision to not save him.
Which is not illegal.
Not illegal. Just
to be fair, no one did anything illegal except for James.
Yes, James does.
They did morally gray shit.
Technically,
they didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah. Well, this is part of what gets me about when they start getting crazy after the fact. They made a lot of stupid decisions, and this really lessened my sympathy for all of them. Like, I first of all thought it was kind of stupid to not pull him out of the water. I'm like, I guess you don't owe that to him. However, he's like half dead. He's not. They were like, if he like gets better, he's gonna come back and kill all of us. And I'm like, he's out for the rest of the year. He took boat hook to the head. He's not coming back from that one without an extensive hospital stay. And so,
but I do believe that he is spiteful enough that he would wait his time out in recovery and hunt them all down. Like, I do believe that.
That's fair. I was like, because, yeah, I don't know. I was just like, why? But then it gets even dumber. So you can kind of excuse them being like, we're just not saving him. All right, fair enough. That's your prerogative. They then like choose to lie about it. They're like, actually, let's concoct a story about what we're all doing. And I'm like, hey, if we had all just sort of been honest, most of us would have been fine. There's a few of you who did know what happened, but the rest of you would have been okay.
I feel like legally they would have been fine, but reputation-wise, they probably all would have lost their careers, and they were already doing a 4-year degree in Shakespeare, so there wasn't really much hope for a pivot at this point.
Well, but like,
I don't know. I feel like their decisions around the actual murder towards, like, when it actually happens for me, I'm like, I can see where all of this is leading. It's after the fact that I'm like, why are you all acting bat crazy?
Well, yeah, but
when you know.
But they're even like, let's lie about Oliver and Meredith hooking up. My dudes, there's so many witnesses. There were so many people at this. Like, why are we lying about this? This is not something that, and then especially because then Oliver and Meredith keep on hooking up. So it's like, hey, this was not under wraps at all. Just stuff like that.
Well, James does mention it. James is like, we need to keep these things under wraps because you literally look like you have a motive to kill him if you're with his girlfriend immediately after.
I know, but it's like,
and
if we just...
Meredith's like, we were broken up before he got killed. Which...
I don't know.
That's a boss girl move on her. She was broken up with him. He was being crazy.
He was. That scene, their hookup scene is insane to me. I read that one and I was like, that is fucking crazy. These like describing.
I was like, kudos to you both.
Yeah, truly, I could not have sex in in that environment. I'm gonna be so honest. Like, if my ex was beating down the door, screaming, as I was hooking up with my good pal, I simply could not do that. And the description of it is also insane because Oliver's talking about it and he's like, Richard yelling is like morphing into Meredith's like breathy sighs, and I'm like, for me, that's not for me. But kudos for you, I guess.
Yeah, that was definitely a little crazy, but it's not the like craziest college story I've ever heard.
It's not the craziest college story ever. They're also...
So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, this tracks.
I will say this is sort of a writing thing, but I will say I really enjoyed how she described their thought process while drunk, because it was so good. It was like you could tell so much that they were intoxicated and not acting like themselves, but it wasn't just like the room was swaying. It was like how she described like their slightly more senses and their decision making. It was so good. I did very much enjoy it. It made you feel not drunk, but it made you feel like you were there and you could like remember being drunk and feeling that way. So that was cool.
Yeah. I felt drunk.
Yeah.
I was reading it and I was like, am I drunk? Because what are we all doing
What's
here?
happening here? All of the parties are fucking crazy. Like, something insane happens at all of them. You have the one that Richard dies at, and stuff before that was also crazy, because you have Meredith, like, backhanding Richard in the kitchen, and James and Alexander just, like, tackling him. And then you have the hookup scene with Richard banging down the doors. And then you have, like,
That's not even to talk about the Halloween. You skip the Halloween party where it ends because Richard almost drowns James.
Yes.
For no fucking reason.
That one was also fucking crazy. The Macbeth scene is insane. First of all, the Macbeth show is so cool. This whole idea is insane, where they're like, they get secret parts, they all practice separately, they never like, they just like have a description of the blocking, and then they put on a whole show. That's so cool, and the description is amazing. So they're like finding out, you as the audience are finding out, but also like the character, because you're finding out through Oliver's perspective, and he's like, oh, that's who that's playing, and this is what this person looks like, and it's all sort of like gossamer and kind of like spooky. It's so good. I loved the Macbeth scene. And then it's followed up with he's drunk. And then we get to the party scene where Richard tries to kill James.
And this is what I was talking about with, like, I wasn't bought into the characters yet. Like, I was like, yeah, Richard's kind of an asshole. And then he was almost killing someone.
It was crazy. It was absolutely insane. Especially because this is the big...
And I feel like if we had a little bit more lead up to that, like where he was starting to do slightly violent things, I would have been like, oh, this man's on like a decline.
Yeah.
It just went from like 0 to like 60, he's killing someone.
Exactly.
And I was like,
whoa.
Well,
because you have the escalation happens after the initial murder attempt. Because you have this thing where he literally attempts to kill James. We avoid. James not dead. And then you have all of the scenes that while they're rehearsing Caesar, where you're finding out that like he's like gripping James hard enough to leave bruises, and the same thing to Meredith, and like all of these other things. And so I feel like those scenes make more sense in context before this initial murder attempt, because jumping straight to murder with no previous violent actions feels crazy. Like,
and like the thing that like set, and like I feel like we needed more like time to understand what was going on with him, because the way that the story is structured, the thing that sets him off is that he doesn't get cast in the part that he expected to in Macbeth.
Yeah, that's like the set off, and then it's sort of that James and Wren are maybe interested in each other, and it's maybe that he suspects Oliver like and Meredith like each other, like something like that. Though, and specifically though, the James Wren thing I think is also supposed to be a confounding factor, but it like none of this is done enough beforehand to explain random murder. You know, like it's so.
And you don't even know that that James and Wren like each other until after that.
Well, it's sort of the thing that sets him off at the party is the two of them together, because they're playing like chicken, and it's James and Wren team up, and Wren's like, James, let me get on your shoulders and stuff like that. And so the thing he says to James is like, get off my cousin, something like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because who are they playing against? Because it was Meredith and
it was
Oliver.
Yeah.
Against Philippa and Alexander.
Yes, I think that's true.
So then who was James and Wren?
I think then Wren wanted to go next. It was something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Oh, it was. I think it was one of the third years. That third-year kid.
Yeah. So it was like...
And then Richard came and f***ed up the vibe.
Very much so. Because then the James and Ren thing doesn't even happen until way later. Like, actually happen. There's nothing more. This is why it was confusing to me. It was honestly a lot of the part of this is because they all flirted with each other. So all of the actual relationships, for me, always felt out of left field. Because I was like, oh, okay. Just kidding. We're not just friend flirting. We're, like, flirting for seduction. And so, like, the James and Ren thing, I was like, why? When did this happen? And especially because you have that in conjunction with, like, James and Oliver interacting, who feel so much more charged than any other relationship in the entire book.
I'm honestly surprised those boys didn't have sex before the end of that book.
They did kiss on stage while playing brothers, though, so that's fun.
Oh, they're brothers? I didn't even realize that their characters were brothers.
I am not one hundo, but I am pretty sure that their characters are playing brothers.
Yeah. James said, "I'm a smooch you, and one of us is about to go to jail."
And it's not me.
James fully thought it was going to be him.
But it was not.
He thought it was going to be him, but then Oliver said, take me.
Oliver said,
I love this man,
I'll take one for this team. Yeah.
This team of
two. Because no one else wants you to take one for that team. Everyone else
was like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? And he said, you don't get it.
I just have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Richard being like, you're just gay and in love with Oliver, and I don't know why you won't leave my girls alone. And James being like, first of all, I can't be gay. Meanwhile, he's in Shakespearean theater. I think that's like the one place you could probably be gay and everyone would be okay with it.
Yeah, true.
I think Alexander has shown that no one really cares if you're gay.
No one did. Everyone was just having...
No one cared.
They
did care that you murdered someone.
That one...
They didn't care that you were gay.
That one's kind of a big one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And, let's talk about how everyone coped with the death. Because, Meredith was, unfazed the whole time.
Girl did not give a shit. She's like, I broke up with you, and that was the end of my feelings about the matter.
She's like, damn, I'm sad you're dead, but that is not going to stop my pursuit of Oliver.
And good for her.
And Oliver said, how am I supposed to give up this pretty lady?
Yeah, Oliver was like...
When she's right in front of me.
I'm so distracted. And she's so right there.
And then James just became Richard Part 2.
Yeah.
And which is, I think, so ironic. Like, he killed him and then was like, I can't handle this. I'm going to turn into him. He, literally, breaks Oliver's nose.
Yes, that fucking scene is crazy. Literally just punches Oliver across the face.
No, he doesn't even punch him. He hits him with a fake sword across the face.
Oh, you're right. He does get punched, though, at some point.
Well, that's when they're practicing.
Yeah.
Which was foreshadowing to the later thing. But they're practicing, and Oliver's supposed to dodge, and then he just doesn't dodge. He just lets James hit him, and everyone's like,
That is what I'm thinking of.
And then later, they're practicing a fight again, and I'm like, oh, someone's going to get hurt during this. I did not expect James to just blatantly smack him across the face, though. That, I was like, this is insane.
That's crazy. It is very foreshadowed, because you have this whole thing where James is, at the beginning, he's talking about how he doesn't just want to play the hero. And so then you have it later on that he is not just playing the hero. Yeah, it is very much, he starts echoing a lot of those behaviors that they were all like, hey, Richard is fucking crazy for that. And James is like, hold my beer, actually. I too will be a little crazy.
I can be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ren just became a ghost.
Yeah. Not that honestly though, not that she had a lot of personality previous of all of them, I would say she was one of the least personalityful. But afterwards it was zero. There was essentially nothing.
Like, I get that it was her cousin, but she also put, like, no fight up to, like, saving his
She was
life.
pretty down for the whole killing him or letting him die.
Like, there was no moment where she was like, yeah, no, we gotta get that man out. Like, that's my cousin. Oh my god, oh my god. She was just sitting on the edge like, yeah, I guess we shouldn't
I guess we should let him stay there.
Huh?
Yeah.
And then she had the nerve to turn into a ghost?
I know. Well, you know, those are probably sort of related. It was like, I let my cousin die, and that was psychologically scarring.
No, I guess that's fair, but at the same time, I was like, girly pop, why are you fainting on stage? And I think it was because they, like, said things, but they weren't, like, elaborating on things. They kept just being like, yeah, she's just fatigued. I was like, no, what's actually... I would love to have a conversation involving Ren where I get to know what's, like, truly eating at her brain instead of just watching her turn into this ghost. And then the last thing you kind of hear about Ren, like, that Oliver really comments on is, like, when they're doing Romeo and Juliet, and James, he's like, oh, James is in love with Ren, and that pisses me the off. And then the other time is when James is like, hey, Ren, let's go sleep together so Oliver will leave me
That
alone.
was unhinged behavior. That one got me. That was so fucking crazy. I was like, Honestly, okay, so here's my thing. I know you don't like James. I did enjoy him. I was enjoying his character, and I was specifically sort of enjoying him and Oliver's, like, charged friendship quite a lot. And I will say, when we get to the part where he's basically him and Oliver do this whole play together where they just go through their lines as Romeo and I think it's Benvolio, might be Mercutio, don't remember. But they just, like, do their lines again. And then Oliver is like, hey, could you explain what any of that means, please? James is like, actually, go fuck off. And then when Oliver's like, actually, no, you will tell me what's going on. And then this, like, so blazing, like, it's so very clear to everybody around that what James is doing is just avoiding Oliver by going up to Ren to sleep with and then being like, can I sleep with you? Horrific. And that really turned me off. Like, not sexually, I mean, but, like, like, you're as a character, I was like, actually, you. The redemption, not there. Because I could understand being guilty about it. Like, killing someone would make you kind of crazy, especially even if you had complicated feelings about them, they were, like, a close friend. But doing something like especially because Ren is being described this whole time as very delicate, like, not well, and she very clearly does have actual feelings for him, even if James is sort of wishy-washy on the subject. So then being like, yeah, let's go have sex, and basically, like, using this as a weird power play over Oliver, horrific. And that was really the end of me liking James.
Yeah, I stopped liking James, like, I think at the first party.
What happens? What was James doing at the first party?
I can't remember. I think it was just, like, his vibe. That sounds so crazy. But, like, hear me out. Okay. I think it was, like, I think what turned me off from James is that you can see his unresolved feelings for Oliver very easily as well. And when you're with Oliver, you have the benefit of having the insight that he is, like, probably in love with James a little bit.
Yeah.
But you also have the detraction that Oliver sees James in the light that he could never love him back the way he does. Like,
yeah.
He sees himself as, like, James's side person who James just keeps around. And so when you're reading that, I think there was a part where James was, like, being really weird about Meredith and stuff like that. And when you read it, like, after the fact and you know that they're in love, you're like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But at the time, it just felt, like, very, like, I couldn't see where James was going with what he was saying. So it felt, like, very, like, you just can't be friends with anyone else but me kind of thing. And I was like, bro, you need to relax. And I feel like I've run into so many Jameses in my life where they're, like, they're the goody two-shoes, like, they don't have to try that hard, but they're so good at what they do, and they always get, like, the good parts, and then they're, like, actually kind of, like, the most annoying and the most manipulative, and they'll make you feel like shit about yourself without even trying, And he was just giving that vibe, and I was not here for it.
He does have some kind of wild... Him and Meredith do not like each other one bit. And it is giving a bit, I would say, I do think that his feelings about Meredith are pretty directly tied to the fact that he is jealous, because we know, especially after the fact, that he has feelings for Oliver. But it comes off during the book as a bit misogynistic, because it's like, he basically, he doesn't truly call her a slut ever, but there is a lot of implication that she is one while we're going through this.
Yeah, no, I don't know. James and me, we're just like, I feel like if I was in that world, me and James he would be one of my arch nemesi. He'd be an arch nemesi of mine, and he wouldn't know why, but I would know why. And then at the end, when it came out that it was probably James, I would have been like, I told you guys. Told you guys.
I knew it.
Like, in my brain, I'm like, I told you this was what was going to happen.
There is nothing better than someone that you've always disliked being outed as a bad person. You're like, I knew it. I knew it the whole time. He's a bitch.
Yeah. And then, I also, the way that, they set it, the author sets it up so that, when Oliver confesses, he has so much evidence against him that makes it seem like he could have done it. Is so crazy to me, because I was watching it. I was watching it. No, I was reading it. And he has to become the house cleaner, which is not what they would do if you had to get financial aid because your parents stopped paying for your last year of college, which that was a whole nother thing. Also, everyone's we all have horrible home lives, and it's Oliver's is very, very just on the very edge of being a bad home life. And then I feel like they added in the we're not paying for college to finally to give him an actual reason to not like his house.
Yeah, because otherwise his not to be that guy, but his parents are sort of right. His dad being hey, I don't really want to pay for you to go to a conservatory where you don't even get a degree. Honestly, kind of valid. But
yeah, Oliver is just giving, you guys don't understand me, which is, completely fine and completely valid. You don't have to vibe with your family.
Yeah.
But Oliver was making it seem like his situation was, the same level of, bad as, Philippa, who, straight up doesn't have a family, and, Meredith, whose parents just, don't see her ever.
Or just never there.
I'm so sorry, Oliver. No.
It's very clear that his whole family does care about him. They just do not really get him. And they're definitely rough around the edges. But yeah.
But then he becomes the janitor of their castle, which is crazy that they it's crazy that they made him clean the place that he lived in. Mm-hmm. This was already not going to be stressful enough for him. They're actually, you have to be in charge of the one place where if you're cleaning and get caught, it's the people you spend all your time with.
Yes.
Which was bad shit crazy. And then he's cleaning and he keeps finding all this shit. And he's like, oh, this was part of the murder. And then he's running and he puts it in the conservatory, the whatever place he puts this locker and their storage of all their prop stuff. And he does this multiple. He does this twice, I think.
Yeah, it happens multiple times where he finds evidence and then he goes. He stores it in his personal locker at the school.
Well, it's not his locker. It's just a random locker from an old play. He's in the basement of the place they do their plays, and they're not even personal lockers. It's just some random lockers that he that were there because they used them in a play once and now they don't need them anymore. Mm-hmm. He was just throwing them in there. But the thing that pisses me off the most in this whole situation is that he was cleaning the house so hard that he almost missed his play again. That was the thing. I was I don't, honestly, there's so much going on and all of this is crazy. And then he hid that thing. And I was this is even crazier. But then he went upstairs and they're where the hell have you been, Loca?
I know.
And I said, I was like, sir, you've been here for 4 years. You spent 4 years doing this, and you almost missed the play? Are you kidding me?
Especially because it's sort of implied that because it's like the last play of, I don't think it's like maybe the last running of Lear, but it's like their last play. It's implied that there's like talent scouts coming and things like that. And like the idea, because he doesn't do that much. Like there's no reason for him to be running so late that they've put this random guy who doesn't know his lines in for him. Like there's no reason, because all he does is clean the house, find this thing, shove it in. He runs to the place he's supposed to go, and then he shoves it in a locker, and then goes upstairs. That is all he does, and that makes him so late that they have this random third year who doesn't know his lines and dressed in his costume. It's like, Oliver, what were you doing?
He was cleaning. He cleaned so hard he lost track of time. But I'm so sorry. That's crazy.
I agree.
That pissed me off.
Yeah.
That pissed me off more than Oliver being like, I did it. And then I don't know. I was just like, bro, where's your time management skills here?
I know.
Which I know is a weird thing to harp on, but it was like, in all of this, that made me the most anxious, that you almost missed this play.
I mean, yeah. I think it was contrived that way to increase the drama of the situation, but yeah, when you think about it in a realistic sense, you're like, in no fucking earth would you be that late to the play. Like, you have to imagine, and I wasn't in theater, so maybe I don't know, but my brother was, and he would go to his call time like 5 hours before play started.
No, you do have to be there hella early. Like, it's not like you can just roll up and be like, yeah, it's 15 minutes till call time. Curtain call. Like, no, you have to be there 2 hours in advance. You're usually getting retrofitted for your microphone. There's a bunch of things going on around you. There's no way that no one would have went back to that castle and found him.
Yeah. No one looks for him. That's the other thing too. They're just like, let's put this third year on. I'm like, none of y'all thought. I also have no idea what the date is supposed to be. I assume not recent, because they don't use their phones ever. But
it's in the 90s. It's 1997, I think.
Okay, so that does make sense as to why they're like, don't text each other.
I mean, there was texting in 1997. It wasn't reliable.
Yeah.
But it was there.
But it's not the same thing as like, if we were doing something and you weren't there on time, I would do two things. It would either I'd call you from my mobile device, or I would text you. And if then you didn't answer, I would go find you. You know what I mean? But at no point do they talk about like really texting, and phone calls are sort of like, I don't even really remember phone calls happening in this book. They might have, but I don't really remember them.
They did have a couple, but they always were calling it on landlines.
Yeah.
So maybe they just didn't have cell phones.
Maybe. Fair enough.
And the only reason I know that cell phones existed is because my parents got cell phones in 1997.
Hey.
Or 96 to 97, because I was getting cooked up, and my parents were like, we need to be able to reach each other at all times.
And that's so real, actually. But yeah.
But
let's talk about the end real quick.
I want to talk about, before we get to the very, very end, which pissed off,
Okay.
and we'll talk about that too, and I need to stop swearing because I keep forgetting that we are putting this on YouTube. I want to talk about how quickly James was just like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, he does give up that goat really, really quick. Oliver confronts him during intermission, and James is like, and you got me. Actually, here's exactly what happened.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I did it. And then they do the second half of the play, and he's like, time to make out.
Let's have a little smoochie, because I can see the detective in the wings.
And then Oliver's so gobsmacked that he just stands there. The two of them just stand there for the rest of the play, not saying their lines.
I love this idea that they just stop speaking lines, and then the third years kind of tentatively say their lines around them. That is so funny to me.
They're just like, they kiss and then they go, and then the play ends. And then the detective comes and is like, you know why I'm here? And he's looking at James, and he's like, you know why I'm here? And Oliver goes, yeah, it's for me.
I'm taking this one.
I'm taking this one, guys.
Yeah.
And then he does his sentence. And then we get to the end. Where he's now out of his sentence.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do I do with my life now? And he goes and he finds Meredith.
Though the first thing he says he wants to do is go find James. And this is despite James having not visited him in like 6 years. And you find out that James killed himself at some point after visiting Oliver. Which is just like so tragically ironic, because the whole reason Oliver decides to go to prison is because he doesn't think James could cut it in prison. And Oliver's like, it'll be fine. I'm just built different, you know? And it doesn't matter. And because hypothetically, James still doesn't even, James still kills himself. So it was like, you know, it didn't even matter. Hypothetically, and that's how it should have ended. Oliver should have gone to Meredith, and they should have been, you know, sort of melancholy together. And that would have been a great ending.
Yes, they both lost men that they loved in this program. They both do love each other.
Yeah.
They definitely do love each other. And I think it was like so nice. It was wrapping up so nice to like be like, okay, like he took the fall for this, and now James is gone, and he can kind of move on with his life and like put that chapter behind him.
Yeah.
And
then you get the fucking letter. I can't. This actually made me so mad. I can't.
The way they're like, and he never found a body.
Ugh.
I said, so James left 2 letters in his car when he killed himself, apparently. And one was to Oliver. Mm-hmm. And then he gets Oliver gets the letter, and it's just another Shakespeare thing, which also adds to my like stress, like my disdain about this, because like I've spent this whole book like reading Shakespeare stuff and like kind of getting the gist, but also not having enough Shakespearean knowledge to like be like, okay, and this is like why this is relevant. Like I feel like if you know Shakespeare and then you read what lines they're choosing, it would be even more impactful. Then he reads this letter, it's Shakespeare. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't even get it. And then he's like, I gotta go do some Google searching, and then like they never found a body. I said, I
actually hate you.
I'm gonna jump in front of a car.
I know. I hate it. It actually makes me so mad. And then he up and leaves. Meredith is just like off on like a business trip or something. He just leaves. No note. Car gone. And that's just how they end the book.
Yeah.
It's no confirmation either way. But it made me so mad.
Yeah, that was a bad ending to a really good otherwise book.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, the plays they're doing, they do all the, like, that's the year of the tragedies.
I know.
They do all their tragedies. So ending the book as a tragedy would have been such a great move.
It was so perfect. This is what gets me, is that the ending was shaping up to be such a good ending for that book. Like, them ending with, like, James dead, Oliver being like, I really missed my chance for this great love, but I still do love Meredith. So you get, like, not exactly a happy ending, but you get, like, this melancholic ending, which fits the book so well and is, like, both satisfying as a reader without betraying what the vibe of the book is. And then you have this absolute batshit thing where they're like, actually, James, not dead. Maybe not dead. And I'm like, actually, you can off. That's not what happened in my mind.
Yeah, no. That is exactly how it felt. But ending besides, I still thought it was a good book.
Yes, it was still a good book.
I think people should read this. I would recommend this as a read.
I agree. I would definitely recommend it. If you like dark academia, it's at least worth reading once. If you like Shakespeare, definitely worth reading. You'll probably like it more than we did. Some people are obsessed with this book. I was taking a browse through Pinterest and TikTok related to it, and it does have a pretty aggressive fan base. So we're just not the target audience, I suspect.
Yeah. No, that's fair. All right. Yeah. So that's our episode on If We Were Villains. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We liked it.
We liked it.
Good book. Good soup.
Good soup. Good soup.
But we'll be back next week. So that'll be exciting, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Crisis of Readers. If you are enjoying our content, please subscribe. And we will be here every Wednesday.